Chapter 19. Cara. Cara knew it would be useless, but she tried dialing Jordan's number again. She needed to know what was going on, and her mental rebukes for taking a rest were playing over and over in her head. She should have gone back to the hospital. At least then she would have been there for whatever was happening. Cole wasn't even able to reach the hospital parking lot before they were stopped by a cop. As he rolled down his window to speak to the woman, Cara realized all the entrances to the hospital were blocked. That could only mean a few things. "I'm sorry, sir. This is an active crime scene, and I'm going to have to ask you to turn around. If you need immediate medical attention, you'll need to go to Mercy Hospital on the east side of town." Cole shook his head. "No, we have no medical emergency. But we are investigating a virus we know has at least one patient inside. Can you at least tell us if it involves that?" "You can contact Detective Graves if you need to," Cara piped up from the passenger seat. "Tell him it's Cara Hunter and Cole Davenport." The female cop offered a smile. "No need, ma'am. I recognize your name, but I can tell you it's not about the virus that I know of. We received a call for a code silver." A code silver. Cara knew exactly what that meant. Someone with a weapon was inside the hospital. And while there was a possibility it could be for another reason, in her heart, she knew the person was after David. Whatever person or group he was working for would want him silenced before the police could interrogate him. The question was, how did they even know he was here? There were only a few possibilities, and none of them sat well with her. "Thank you, officer. When you see Jordan, will you have him call me?" Cara asked. The woman nodded. "Of course, ma'am." Cole rolled up his window and turned away from the hospital, but he didn't drive very far before pulling over and turning to Cara. "Okay, what's a code silver?" "It's the hospital's code for someone with a weapon." She said the words pointedly and waited for their meaning to sink in. "And you think that someone is after David?" "It makes sense, right? Fire Beach isn't a small town, and we have our fair share of crime. But the last time we had a code silver here was when evil people from out of town were after a woman who ended up here." "So who would know David is here?" Cara ran a hand through her hair and then realized she had done the gesture so often today that her short hair, while usually tidy, was bound to be a messy disaster. "That is the question that scares me. Either there were people here already watching to make sure he did what he was supposed to, or they've got my phone bugged." "Why would you say that?" "I called my boss after we tested the watering can, told him about David being admitted, but if they're bugging my phone, I have no idea what else they've heard." She shook her head as the frustration inside of her mounted. "Cara, there is another possibility you should consider." Cole's voice was low and serious, and it sent the hairs on her arm standing straight up. "What's that?" "Your boss could be in on this." "What?" The very idea flabbergasted Cara. She'd known Bradley Malone for years. He was the quintessential good guy, played soccer with his kids, barbecued with his neighbors, never broke the law. Not even for speeding. Not Malone. He is patriotic to the core. He would never want to see innocent people killed by this virus. But even as she protested, the thought took hold in her mind. Could he have done that? He was the only one who knew where both she and Steve had moved to after the mole was discovered that she knew of. In fact, he'd been the one to tell them about the mole. But he couldn't be involved. The man bled red, white, and blue. "Look, I'm not saying that he is, just that we shouldn't discount the possibility. Good people do bad things all the time, for any number of reasons, right?" She hated to acknowledge it, but he was right. David hadn't seemed like the type to commit murder either, but he'd apparently done so in order to help save his sister. Was it possible Malone had too? Inside her pocket, her phone began buzzing. She pulled it out and hit the call button as soon as she recognized Jordan's number. "Jordan, what's going on in there?" "I'm sorry, Cara. He's dead." Jordan's deep voice held a heavy sadness. "David's dead? Did he say anything first? Did you at least get the guy who killed him?" Her voice took on a hysterical edge, and she realized she was almost yelling at him. She took a deep breath to try and calm herself. None of this was his fault. "I'll ask Nick, but I don't think so. He was still sedated." Jordan paused, and his breath was audible on the other end. "I'm afraid the shooter's dead too, Cara. Once he took out David, he turned the gun on us. It was self-defense." "You let them kill him? How am I supposed to get answers now?" Cole shot her a look, and Cara waved a dismissive hand at him. She knew she was being irrational. She just seemed unable to stop it. Her world had felt like a wobbly deck of cards house the last few days as it was. Now one event had knocked it to the ground and sent the cards flapping around like injured birds. There was a long pause on the other end, and Cara knew Jordan was composing himself. He'd never seen her this wound up. She couldn't remember the last time she had been this wound up. But he knew she was not herself. "I'm sorry, Cara. We'll look into the shooter, and we'll find out who's behind this one way or another. I promise." Cara closed her eyes and took a deep breath. When she spoke again, her voice was almost back to normal. "I know. And Jordan, I'm sorry." "Me too, Cara." The phone went dead in her ear, but she knew he had accepted her apology, and things would still be okay between them. She stared at the phone for a moment, unsure of what to do next, and even more unsure of what to say about her emotional outburst. Cole was definitely getting to see her at her worst. "David's dead." It was all she could think to say, and it summed everything up in two important words. What in the world was she supposed to do now? She had no idea who had hired David, nor could she even question the man sent to silence him. She wasn't even positive David had been the one who killed Steve and knocked her out. Could there be more people involved in this? It was starting to feel much bigger than she had originally thought. Cole tapped his fingers against the steering wheel for a moment. She was sure he had nothing to add, but then he spoke up. "Do you think his sister might have some knowledge?" "What? The sister who has cancer? Why would she?" "Don't you think, if David was suddenly able to pay for cancer treatments, that she might wonder where the money was coming from?" Cara shrugged. She supposed it depended on how far along the cancer was and how close the siblings had been. "It's at least worth a shot, right?" "Yeah, I guess. Do you know where his sister lives?" Cole flashed her a disarming smile. "What kind of criminal investigator would I be if I didn't?" Once again, Cara felt her heart stutter in her chest. Not only did he not seem concerned about her outburst, but now he was smiling at her as if he was actually interested in her. Could he actually be interested in her? And if he was, what did she even do with that knowledge?